Hello, people. You got us. You got the struggling hunters. You got me, Joe, and on the other side, you got,
Eric.
and I've already introduced us as a struggling hunter. So I think we maybe skipped our awkward introduction of trying to announce the struggling hunters. So I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, or maybe a good play on my part. I didn't try to make that happen. It just happened.
I think you saved us tonight, Joe.
But thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening, and hopefully you guys have been having a good year so far this year. Uh, Hopefully things are going in your favor, or maybe you're making them go in your favor. That's even better. Um, but I guess with that being said, uh, give us a like, uh, subscribe, tell a friend. I, you know, I'll leave it at that, and and then I'll get us into our conversation for tonight. So, one of the things that, as I was thinking about what to discuss for tonight, we talk about hunting, we talk about what goes into hunting, and there's a lot of decisions that go into hunting. There's a lot of maybe self uh, do's and don'ts that you keep yourself listed at, or listing yourself that like lines you don't cross, or as far as I'm never going to access that canyon unless I have a east facing or an east wind coming, or or whatever it might be. I always make sure I have the wind in my face when I'm going through this situation, whether going up, downhill. Thermals are going to be in my favor. And one of the things, so upon thinking of that, one of the things that kind of stuck out that for me over the years is shot placement. I'll admit that I'm pretty much a broadside dude. A lot of people, they're good with quartering shots, or straight on shots. But for me, I'm pretty much waiting for that deer to be broadside and giving it a good center shot. uh, what about you, Eric?
Yeah, well, I have to agree. I'm pretty much a broadside shot guy. I mean, I feel the most confident. I feel like I have the most room there. Um, I could see where a situation. I could see where there'd be situations where I take other shots. Um, but I definitely prefer a broadside shot. For me, um, I just want to try to make as clean of a shot as possible and not not have not have that regret of wounding an animal or making a bad shot. And for me, distance goes in there too. I mean, I don't know if that was something that you were going to lead into, but distance is kind of part of that too. I don't really feel comfortable past 300 yards or so to make a long distance shot. I know people brag about it and I made an 800-yard shot, but it's like there's a lot of room for error right there, and I don't know. For me, I just want to make a clean, ethical shot and broadside if I can. So,
Right. And I think that's kind of like the hard thing too. I shouldn't say hard, but we talk about ethics and what all goes into that. Like, as I'm sitting here talking tonight, even, like I'm going over in my head, you know, trying to, I guess, justify taking any other shot. And I guess maybe it's a lack of information of where everything is. as far as the vitals go, when the animal's facing me in different directions, so maybe if I learned a little bit more, I might be able to, or I might change my point of view. But uh, and I think the other thing too that goes along with that is is like, the shot placement is really as I think about over the years, like that whole slogan, aim small, miss small, you
Yeah.
know, and especially going over learning, becoming a better bow hunter. I one of the things that I've tried to get better at, and I don't know that I'm great at though, is really honing in to where I'm shooting. Like, I guess for example, when I'm shooting, I try to get my head in to my shot as far as picking a spot at the target that I want to shoot, instead of saying, well, if I hit the target, I'm doing good. Like that target's 10 or 12-inch circle, whatever, and I want to hit somewhere in that target, which is great, but trying to remember to actually find maybe a section in that circle that I want to hit. And I think when evidently I haven't shot at anything live yet, but on target, on paper, I think I'm learning to apply that aim small, miss small, but I'm still missing more than or aim my target's a little bit, my arrows outside of probably the target that I'm really aiming at. But and then, like I said, bring that to an actual animal, putting an animal in place, haven't had the opportunity of releasing an arrow this last year or last 2 years. It's just, trying to get that thought process. I'm thinking I'm going to do that, trying to find that patch of fur to aim at instead of the whole shoulder or the whole kill zone to shoot at. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm picking up what you're saying. It kind of brings me back to whenever I was a kid. I'd go out shooting with my dad and some of his friends, and I remember I was shooting at a target, and I don't know, I probably had a pretty big group, like maybe like a 5+ inch group or something, and we went up there and we just took a couple shots or whatever, and I remember my dad's friend kind of shrugged his shoulder and he's like, "Oh, well, you'd kill whatever you're shooting at." And I remember, like, it kind of took me back because I'm like no pointers, no, like, take your time, no, like, let's try to dial that in, because I wanted to dial it in. I wanted to hit the center. I was a fresh new hunter, but it never set right with me, because I'm like, yeah, I mean, I might kill it, but like, what if he's 50 yards back from where I'm target, you know what I mean? Like, even as a young guy, I kind of broke all that down in my head, and I'm like, I mean,
So
that's great, but
you're trying to be a better shot, and he was just like, well, you'll kill it.
yeah, he just kind of shrugged his shoulders, and I don't know, it just never set with me right. I mean, I was kind of looking for perfection, and he was just like, good enough. And those were my formative years where I really could have used some advice. I mean, maybe that's just the way he hunted, so but I don't think my dad really stepped in or anything for me either. So, to like help guide me on getting a closer shot or a better, tighter grouping or whatever. And I can't even remember what I might have been shooting an open sight 30-30, but
I kind of had the same experience with the 30-30 open sight back when I was 9 or 10. That was like the biggest caliber, I think the biggest caliber rifle I shot at the time. And I had no clue on trajectory, bullet drop, velocity, bullet speed, muzzle velocity. Like, you know, all that was new to me. And I didn't even know that was even a thing at the time. And I went out shooting with my dad, and and we're shooting towards this hillside but like way back behind and up the hill a little bit, there was like, I think like this rock slide on the side of the hill. Like there was a different color of the terrain was different color, and I think it was rocks, like a little rock filled up there. And in my head, I was like thinking that I could be able to shoot it and see dust fly up or something. And so I pulled up and I was like telling my dad I wanted to shoot up at those rocks, and he was like, "Oh, okay." So I, pulled the gun up and I'm aiming, and I think I was aiming, but kind of like your situation, I pulled the trigger, but not that I was really trying to be a better shot. I just was trying to shoot up in that direction. And my dad goes, "Well, you can't just pull up and aim high and shoot at it," or meaning just because I pointed the barrel up a little higher doesn't necessarily mean I'm shooting the right direction. So, but like it was too far. It was way too far for the 30-30. Now looking back, and it was way too far to even see like a dust cloud kick up because of the bullet.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I know I want to start in the future kind of focusing on getting out there and shooting a little further distances and stuff, just kind of for the fun of it, but also to try to be a better marksman. I mean, I think I'm all right within a couple hundred yards, but after that I get a little shaky. And I've watched a lot of videos and stuff of how guys are getting out there, getting 600, 700 yards or further. Some guys are getting 1,000. And I'd like to get there eventually, but yeah, as of right now, kind of what you were saying, like with bullet drop and everything, it's just there's a lot of things to consider whenever you're shooting at a live animal in a split second. You got your adrenaline pumping, you got to think of your bullet drop. Is your caliber strong enough to even get out there and reach that far? I mean, let's face it. I mean, most of these calibers they're gonna cause damage, but it might not be a kill shot.
Right.
I mean, even your smaller, your 6.5 Creedmoors are gonna reach out there and touch something, but obviously those bullets will reach a long ways. But I don't know what is the word velocity. The
Yeah.
velocity, like once it hits the target, I don't know how much velocity is still there at 800 yards or whatever. So it increases the chances of wounding the animal. That's just the part that I don't feel comfortable with. I don't want to wound an animal. I'm going out there to hunt and kill an animal so I can, well, document it for one, for two, take home to the family and eat some wild game. So I'm not interested in doing those long, crazy shots. And like I said, for me, I feel more comfortable within that 3. I'll stretch out to 400 yards. I wouldn't have a problem with that too much, but anything past that, it just starts getting a little shaky because you got all your emotions and everything else going on. And, you make a bad shot, you might have wounded an animal for the year and not take anything home. And it's something that I want to get more confident in. I guess what I'm really saying for me, this isn't for everybody, but for me, I'm just not confident at taking really far shots for the animal's sake, and that's just me. I mean, whoever's listening to this might make 800-yard shots every day. That's great. But for me, it's just a little more. I'm a little more conservative whenever it comes to shot placement as far as broadside and also distance.
Right. And kind of like along those lines for I thought I had some brilliant way to go into this next little segment, but I kind of I lost what my train of thought. So sorry for if it feels a little rough about getting into this next part, but I guess I'll go ahead and lead into it instead of trying to or anyways. So as a lot of you guys know, we're the struggling hunters. If you've been following our podcast so far and you followed us through the hunts, you know that we've had a great time out in the woods, but there's no maybe or I think about it. We did come up short, and we both ended up eating tag soup this year. And that was pretty hard on us as far as eating tag soup. We'd both like to think that we are or we were some type of a glorified hunter, not just because we have a hunting podcast, but we've spent years hunting and thought that we'd be successful, but we weren't. And we kind of took that as not being successful as partly because we called ourselves the struggling hunters. uh, because, if you believe in, or, whatever words you use is kind of what dictates your life, more or less, sometimes. And saying if we claimed ourselves as the struggling hunters, that we're going to have a gosh darn hard time hunting because that's what we're implying with the name. But long story short, we did, we maybe took a little more personal than we needed to, as far as being that we call ourselves the struggling hunters. But we were talking about it before we got on, and we're wanting to come up with like a slogan, or I guess a power statement is what we want to say for this next year of 2021. We haven't quite found what those words are yet, but we'll have, some type of a power statement going along with the struggling hunters to hopefully help with 2021.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, I feel the struggling is going to be, no matter what we called ourselves, would still be the struggling hunters. But I feel that there is, some power out there in the words that we do use, and we want 2021 to be better than last year. So we're going to ask for your help, that those of you listening, to leave a comment. Let's, maybe what are some of the power words you tell yourself when you're having a hard day, or if you have some links to some stories that you like to share, or give us a story and for motivation, or whatever that may look like. But yeah, I think Eric was probably a little bit more upfront about it in his stories. At least he was in person than I was, about not being so successful.
Yeah. Well, I'm just glad that we didn't decide to call ourselves the never miss, get an animal every year hunters.
Right.
Then I'd be extra embarrassed. But because we're the struggling hunters, I'm like, well, it's kind of in the name. But yeah, it was definitely a tough year. It definitely. I mean, I said it before, but it definitely hurt, not getting nothing this year. And we put a lot of energy into this podcast and trying to document our hunts. And man, the confidence that we had, I feel like both of us had it. And in some reasons, I mean, like especially you, Joe, there was a lot of reason to have confidence. I mean, you were scouting out those deer every weekend, for however long you were doing that for, and opening day of your season, they decide not to be where they've been for the last 3 or 4 weekends. And, like, it was just like, okay, is this the kind of year we're going to have, and then I felt pretty confident about the area I was going, heard a lot of good news or a lot of good stories about the area. I heard,
so not to cut you off, but how are you going to change your outlook for 2021? Like, I don't know. I guess what am I trying to say? I know we talked about having a power statement, a slogan along with what we're doing, but I guess I was gonna, ask for what changes you're gonna do for this year, but I don't know if that's really all that fair.
Well, I do have one thing that I've been really thinking about a lot. We went over a few podcasts ago. This is where, like, one day when we're a little bigger on our podcast and we can have a producer, this would be kind of nice because then we could reference the actual podcast. But a few podcasts ago, we talked about an article about trying to do, thinking outside the box, doing different stuff than 90% of the other hunters. I don't quite know what that looks like, but I've been that thought has been really rattling in my brain a lot, for next year about, hey, if I'm seeing a bunch of people kind of on the same mountainside and stuff, maybe I need to go find somewhere else, go where everybody's not. And, maybe change elevation. I think the hardest thing sometimes is you make such a plan for a certain spot, certain area, and then it's not quite working out but you kind of put all this time and energy in that certain spot and area. It's kind of hard to just pack up and leave, I guess.
No, that makes sense. Like, one of that's along the lines for me. Like, I just, I don't know that I have something as far, I want to be, I know we said it, better physical shape, but the one thing that I want to do different this year, as far as, at least deer hunting, is I want to try to make sure I get into the tops of the bulls, or, like the tops of the ridges, kind of like how the honey hole that we found in my deer hunt area, and how that was, at the top at the bowl, and that's where all the deer happened to be. It's like goes along with your elevation thing, from where we were kind of hunting to where we actually found those deer. I think there's probably about 400 or 500 feet in elevation, maybe not quite 500, but yeah, there was an elevation difference. And then I kind of wonder, had I clued into that earlier in the season, went to some of in the same area, but just a different bowl, different canyon, and being at the would you call it the beginning? Just in the top of the mountain where it starts going downhill,
Yeah.
that I feel like if we would have hit one of those in a different area, maybe there would have been success, because that's, repeated what we found in that area.
Yeah, it gets tough though. I mean, kind of reflecting back on both of our hunts, with that weekend that I was with you. I mean, any other time I would have thought we were in some good spots,
Yeah.
That first night whenever we climbed up, I know we didn't quite get all the way to the top where you wanted to get, but before we started descending down, we were sitting there for a couple hours, and I mean, we saw so much. You could see so much around us, and I mean, we had pretty good visual advantage, and there wasn't a sign of anything popping out, which was kind of frustrating. But um, I don't know. I mean, it gets tough. I mean, whenever your first plan doesn't work out, it's just hard to know what to do. But like I said, kind of going back to what I said a bit ago, like I don't know what it looks like exactly to do something different, but I'm just thinking, hey, maybe I need to just go where nobody else wants to go, or I don't know. I don't know what it looks like exactly, but just trying to make a different move than what everybody else is doing.
Right. And I guess the reason I brought that up is where we have like kind of the whole year in front of us, and was wanting to pull some of that out, now get us thinking. So that way, we're hopefully thinking about it the rest of the year and not just 2 weeks before the season opens and be like, well, I guess I'll go run off and do this now.
Yeah.
Hopefully we have the whole year to think about it and try to really make it better. But
Actually, I think I kind of have an idea of how, and me and you kind of did it when I went to your hunt, actually, but kind of just thought of this for like an idea is I put so much effort into the one spot, and me and you, we had a snow the night before, and we were like, well, let's go try to find tracks and see what that gives us, and that's the whole reason we ended up in that other spot, and it kind of worked out. I mean, we didn't get nothing, but we at least saw an elk, and a bear.
Yeah.
Always got to throw that bear in because that was pretty cool. That was really cool.
Like I said, I keep telling people, I wasn't successful as far as filling a tag, but man, the stuff I got to see this year was awesome.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I feel the same way. And, but yeah, with that thought though is, that was kind of a spur of the moment change. And so something that I'm kind of considering for next year is have those changes already planned. So instead of like, well, I don't know, let's go find some territory, already have that territory kind of mapped out in my head, or mapped out as an idea of where to go. And, so wherever my base camp is, I'll try to hunt from there, but things ain't quite going right, I'll have a plan B and maybe a plan C but they're planned ahead of time instead of in the spur of the moment. So that's something that I think I'm going to work on for the elk hunt.
That makes sense. Like I tried doing that for the deer hunt, but we didn't find that honey hole till the last day, which that was a spot that I had, but again, we were a lot lower the whole time, and then that last day we finally went up to the top of the mountain there, and that's I mean, we went through the bottom and hiked up, but that back in that back area that we found all that sign.
And I'm sure if we would have had the full weekend up in there, or even the full day, because we could only hunt half a day that day, we probably, if we would have found a good spot to just set and glass.
True.
I almost bet we would have saw more activity, but we were kind of fast pacing. I mean, we were trying to go slow, but we kind of knew that we, in the back of your mind, you kind of know that you have to take off at some point. So you're just trying to hit as much territory as possible and hoping for the best. I mean, I kind of feel like that's what happened that day. And, but if we would have had a little more time, I think we at least would have probably saw some more movement over in that area. But I was just thinking though, this is where hunting, like, I guess it's the fun of it, to be honest with you. Like, So, I'm talking about, well, if nothing's coming up, have a plan B and C. But then there's kind of something to be said about like hitting the same spot every day. And then like, you're like, man, about to give up. But then like at the last second of the last moment, something just pops up. Uh,
Right.
I mean, there's something to be said about that too, like staying put. But I know like my elk hunt, the hardest, the hardest thing with that, we probably should have abandoned that area even sooner than, well, I mean, we never, I guess I never really did except 2 days where I went up where we saw the bear and elk. I went up there 2 days in a row, but um, we should have probably abandoned that area sooner because I mean, we didn't really see much sign either. That was the other thing. I mean, it was so dry in there, like we weren't seeing much sign. Because I think it all kind of comes together, like if you're seeing some sign or spotting something, like that it keeps you there. You're like, well, I know they're in here somewhere. But whenever you're not really seeing any of that, it's really hard to stay motivated to stay in that one spot.
Right.
And I don't know. I feel like that was probably one of my mistakes is I kept trying to hunt it because I just thought, oh, there'll be something that pops up. But I don't know.
How quick? So I guess that's one of the things too is a trait that maybe working on, and I don't know, but just learning to swallow your pride and try something new. Because I'm guilty of it too. Like, oh no, this is where I want to be. Like, I think this is where it should happen. And maybe you see it like for me, like at least deer hunting. You'll more than likely we kept saying it. Well, my deer hunt because we didn't see any, but we're always like, oh, we don't see any does. Like we don't see any activity, and we did see that one doe on the one evening, but but then I guess for me, it kind of got to, well, if I'm not seeing deer, I don't know where to go without pulling up and like going to a whole different part of the unit that I've never been. Like that was, I guess, my struggle was, I was real in my head. Like we bounced around quite a bit trying to find sign, trying to find deer, and there's that we thought we were going down a road that had a gate on it and there was going to be no one in there because it was locked. But we start going down the road and the truck comes out and we're like, well, shoot, there goes this hunt. And they're like, well, let's just keep going. Maybe they were driving up the road from the further down and we'll still have success. We start going down the road just a little bit further. And sure enough, there's their like camp. There's a camp trailer down there and like 2 cords of wood. And so, and we hiked, we hiked a little bit too to get down in that. And it was kind of a hike to get back out of there. And, man, when you're not seeing the sign, and I think for me too, now that being said, is I kind of want to have a checklist somehow, like, okay, move elevation, like make sure I'm going, down because we spent most of our time at the lower elevation until the last day we went up kind of a little bit higher. But
that first day, I think we were higher than the last day.
no, we were, but I think we weren't we weren't in a good feeding area.
That's true. That's
The
true.
big thing I think where I didn't, I couldn't really tell that. Well, I guess I could on Google Earth, but like I didn't realize how much rock shell we were in.
Yeah, that was I I don't know how to articulate this, but sometimes sometimes I wonder if we put ourselves in, in, in areas that even elk and deer don't even want to be in necessarily.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like we kind of put
Yeah.
ourselves in these, heavily like really rough terrain areas where I'm like, I don't know if, I mean, I don't even know if deer or elk want to walk through here, and
Well, I think so. As we're talking about it, like my head, I start like ticking things off. Like yeah, you're right. We were in an area that I don't think they'd like. So to give you a little bit of background, hiking up to where we were, I about killed Eric. I think he was wanting to go home because he thought the whole hunt was going to be miles of hiking uphill. And and I didn't quite get to where I was wanting to get to, which was probably a good thing. And found this little spot. We kind of hunted, trying to find vantage points, stayed till dark, but we saw like one set of tracks, and they're just we weren't seeing anything. And we sat one spot for a couple hours and nothing moved. And then we started heading down, and we were pretty much hiking out on on shell rock. It was pretty dangerous, not the smartest thing to do. And so there's going to be no deer hiking up that. But but as we're talking about that, and I'm thinking about these situations in my head, and then I kind of go, well, if we could have found a route to get back into there, maybe if we found there might be a honey hole back up in there, because nobody else for one is going to hike up in there or find a way to get in there. And so there might be something up in there because no one can find the easy route to get into it, the route whatever deer that or the animal uses to get in there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and it does make sense. I mean, I think, yeah, I think that's what most people think is, like, oh, if I take this route that's really rough and, nobody else is going to be up there for sure. So animals should be in there because there's no pressure.
Right, but I didn't really look ahead to see if, well, maybe I did, and we just kind of beat ourselves up, and was like, well, that hike was so bad, I'm not really gonna try to look around that area to see if there's anything worth going up in there after. I don't know. But I guess back to what I was getting at is having a checklist of like, okay, I'm not seeing anything. What's the next thing? What's the next step? Versus, well, I'm not seeing anything. I'm just going to go over here and hopefully I see something. Because
Uh,
that's kind of what we did. I kind of did it trying to find vantage points. Because every time we went someplace, I was like, well, we'll be able to look at this hillside. But we never came across a lot of sign.
yeah, that was, I mean, until that last day, obviously, but that was probably the hardest part of it is just, I mean, not seeing deer, not seeing sign. I mean, there was just hardly any sign. The
Right.
sign that we did see was pretty old
And not a lot of it.
and not a lot of it. So just like it was almost like they were just migrating, where we were at least. They just kind of once in a blue moon might migrate through there, but that's not their
Right.
stopping destination. That one area that I think it was the second day uh where we walked into that dark timber. I was kind of surprised that we didn't see more life in there. We saw
Sure.
or where we saw that first dead porcupine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was man. We had all kinds of crazy experiences this year. We had that, we I never really seen a dead porcupine in the woods like that, and then we ended up seeing two.
Right.
Then we saw the bear. I mean, I'm kind of getting out way off track of what we were even talking about, but just kind of replaying everything. I'm like, wow, man, we saw that wallow. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
We really saw a lot of stuff this year.
That's yeah, like we keep we keep saying like we ate tack soup, but we had a good time eating it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some of the experiences that we had was pretty good. It was pretty good, but hopefully this next coming year we can have some more success and see what that feels like.
True, very true. But I think with that though, we'll just kind of end on that note. I feel like it's a good stopping point there for the night. Um, but before we kind of say goodbye, big thanks for listening. We appreciate you guys coming along with us. Hopefully, I feel like I look like I'm. I don't know what I look like. I feel like I look haggard, I guess, tonight. So if you're watching YouTube, I'm sorry. A little tired. Um, but yeah, again, subscribe, like, leave a comment. Leave a comment. Like I said, we talked about earlier, trying to come up with the power statement for this 2021 season. Something that will, when we're having our hard times climbing a hill or not seeing the game like we'd want, something that we could use to motivate us. With that, do you have anything, Eric?
No, man, I think I'm good tonight. So
Cool. Cool. Yeah. So with that, guys, keep pushing, and we'll get another one out here. And um, happy hunting.
happy hunting, guys. That's a good one. We should leave with that more often. You guys have a good one. We'll talk to you in the next one.